1 out of every 3 children are either overweight or obese.
To solve the childhood obesity problem, we need a combination of exercise and better food choices.
It will bankrupt the healthcare system in the United States unless we really get a handle on it.
It's been incredible progress that has really brought back a spark and a creative excitement to a lot of the school cafeterias.
We really enjoy working with schools because it's a truly mutually beneficial relationship.
It's worth it to invest more in our kids. They are our future.
Farm to School, Growing Our Future is a co-production of the University of Minnesota Extension, Minnesota Department of Health, and TPT's Minnesota Channel, with funding provided by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
What we're seeing now nationwide is that children's diets are a major cause of concern.
Our children are really counting on us to get this thing turned around. We've been watching those maps, the obesity maps, for the last 20 plus years, and they haven't gotten any better.
We talk about it in our health classes, we talk about it in our phy-ed classes. Well, the food and nutrition department ought to be right there in the same conversation, because it isn't going to do any good to ramp up your phy-ed classes if you now go down to lunch and eat all the starchy, fatty foods that are going to put all that right back on that body. And so I think we all agree that to solve the childhood obesity problem, we need a combination of exercise and better food choices, and that's where this program fits in wonderfully.
There are so few relationships out there where everybody wins, and I think this is a perfect example of that. The students are the real beneficiaries. They get a healthy, nutritious, clean, scratch meal. Certainly for us as growers, we're getting a fair and consistent price for the work that we're doing. And I think for the local economy as well, rather than exporting those food dollars, we're keeping them a little closer to home. And so that certainly has community benefit as well on the economic side.
In a lot of our local schools, the food service directors are really taking the initiative to find out where the food is grown around them, what farmers have to sell, and making it work in their school lunchroom. They may start small, they may start with pilots, they may start with foods that are in season, that are readily available, but they're working toward not making it so much the exception as the rule, and the regular working it into their menus. So it's been incredible progress that I've seen that has really brought back a spark and a creative excitement to a lot of the school cafeterias, both on the part of the food service directors and their staff, but also on the part of students and parents and teachers. Everyone is really excited about Farm to School and what it can do. We may be turning this all on its head and finding that people really like to eat in the cafeteria again, and they're really enjoying it, and that their school is building a culture of good health based around good food.
You know, this is really prevention. This is really investing in our children's health, and we know that children's health is really related to also their academic well-being.
It's all something that is so new for so many of the students. We've been disconnected from our food sources for such a long time that they're really excited about it themselves. It doesn't matter if it is kindergarten or in 10th or 11th grade. The students throughout all of the grades in the district really get excited about this.
In my generation, school still had a lot of food was prepared right in the school cafeteria. And that's changed not only in Minnesota, but in many other parts of the country, that now you see a lot of really highly processed foods that oftentimes are prepared off-site and brought in. So there's a real movement now to bring cooking back into the schools and have higher quality foods that are also locally grown. What we need, though, is much more training for school food service directors, and we need more funds for really school cafeteria redesigns so that you can have money for steamers, for salad bars, you know, taking out the fryers, to really be able to serve healthier foods. And then there needs to be technical assistance to really help food service directors, who care deeply about the health of children, to really give them the resources and the equipment that they can really have these healthier foods served to children.
The kitchens are really meant to be used for foods that are taken out of the box and thrown on sheet pans and then thrown into the oven, a heat and serve type environment. So there's usually a fairly significant challenge with the facility limitations. And, that is not a cheap, easy fix.
It's not an easier route to go, and there's no sense in making it sound like it would be. But I also think that the staff feels so much better about what they're doing. We have had to raise prices slightly, although we're right in line with most of the area schools. But we've had more than one parent comment that for what my kids are getting up at that school, I'll gladly pay another nickel or another dime or another, whatever it might be. So I think that you'll find that the majority of people will say, now that I know they're eating as well as they are, I don't mind writing that lunch check quite so much. Right off the bat, there might be a little bit of an increased cost, again, to get this going. But I think in time, as people see, well, this is what we want, and the producers find this is what we know our customer wants, I think that takes care of itself.
Most surprising, I think, has been the understanding for me that economic development does include food work, that these initiatives are, in fact, a tool for economic growth, that we're reducing costs by keeping our food dollars local, and we're improving the economy in other ways beyond the traditional definitions.
Bix Produce was founded in 1930 by Max and Sam Bix in Austin, Minnesota. So we're a locally owned and operated company and have been ever since 1930. The amount of business that we've done with local farmers really back in 1930 to today has grown tremendously, of course. We believe in fully supporting our local vendors. Distributors the size of Bix need to bring in full pallet quantities of product. The small farmers that sell their products out of trucks and food markets can put their product into a distribution center where Bix can then go and pick up a full pallet. I've sat in many roundtable discussions and we've talked about how can we get this small farmer out in northwestern Minnesota, how can we get his product into the flow? And that's really the only way that large distributors can buy product.
There also are policies, for example, school lunch policies that give schools access to commodities, food commodities at a very low price.
The school commodity program is an important part of the school lunch program, but sometimes that doesn't fit in with farm to school. We actually have had to make a choice sometimes about whether we were going to stick with our farm to school products or whether we were going to go with the commodity, which does save us money. And last year, for the first time, we did not use our entire entitlement of commodities.
One thing that would really help for schools is if there was a policy of 10 or 20% local food, that they also provide budgets for that expenditure so they can purchase directly from farmers. Schools want to make the shift. Schools are having a hard time figuring out how to do that, both in expenditure and just physically. How do you contract with a farmer? It takes so much time. So we need to make food hubs. We need to build systems that make it easier for the schools to participate in the farm to school program.
For a producer, I would say think outside the box a little bit and realize that you may need to adapt what you're doing to serve these customers, but it's a great set of customers because these are the kids in your community, and farmers need to talk with each other, find out what's working, and they need to be willing to work together to invest maybe in some packing facilities or small processing facilities, or simply to aggregate their product.
I once was presented a card, it was from a carpenter, and it said, speed, price, quality, pick two. And for the American food system, we have been picking speed and price. We think we can have all three, but I'm not quite sure how we get all three.
Certainly the policies that are in place were well considered, and they were aimed at a particular intention. And I think it's sometimes the unintended consequences of those that sort of create the barriers for a local food system.
Farm to School has been very rewarding for our company and for me personally. I'm fortunate enough to have a daughter that's a teacher, and I have an opportunity every year to go to a classroom and bring local products to the school and let the children taste them and eat them. And they get so excited. I know they're going home to tell their mom and dad that they ate squash and they had things that they haven't had before. And that's what we need to do to change the habits.
Times do change, and we need to relook how we educate folks about our food, our primary ingredient in life.
There is nothing more important than investing in our children's health. Food is something that we all share an interest in. If we think of our population becoming more healthy and more wealthy and wise, why wouldn't we want to do that?
It's worth doing, working with local farmers, talking with them, and I think through that conversation and working together, a lot of times you can find those win-win situations.
There's nothing more important than our children and their futures.